Hello, Amanda, Jody, Elizabeth, Amy, Isha, Nicole, Gina, and Melissa. Thank you for all of your excellent contributions to the week 2 discussion. I appreciated your sharing and your insights, and this is a tough question about how to balance the interests and the ethical obligations to different groups. As Melissa pointed out at the very beginning of the discussion, she said it is difficult to say what or who is the most important in regards to the ethical obligations of an organization. That's very true. It's hard to say who is more important in any particular situation. And many of you had the insight that we should all start off our thinking by saying all stakeholders should be given equal consideration. As Jody put it, everybody should get an equal share of the ethical pie. That we can't start off from the beginning by saying that any one group is always more important than another. I mean, Melissa did point out that in most organizations, customers are the largest group, and that there's good reasons to think of them because they're the largest group as the most important. And as Melissa pointed out, if you're going to think in utilitarian terms about the greatest good for the greatest number, you have to start thinking about customers because those are your biggest group. However, it's also true, as others pointed out, that sometimes employees need to be considered, because if you don't take care of your employees, they're not going to do a good job, they're not going to serve the customers well, and the organization is going to suffer. In other cases, it may be the case where you need to consider investors or shareholders because their interests are severely affected by a particular situation. And I guess that's really the thing, is that there's no one group that is always going to have precedence, but we need to consider the needs and the various interests and balance them. And we have tools to do that. As Melissa pointed out, we have the utilitarianism, we have the harm principle. And perhaps one way to think about this is, again, to start out, as Nicole Marquez pointed out, to start out in a neutral place, as neutral as possible, to not have any preconceptions about who's most important and who's least important, but to start off with that neutral, or that idea of equality of stakeholders, and then to consider situation, interests. And one way that I like to think about this is, who will lose the most? Who has the most to lose in this situation? And if you look at a situation and say, oh, well, the employees have the most to lose, then you might want to think of them as a priority. If it's the customers who have the most to lose, you might want to think of them as having the highest priority, so that we care for people that are most vulnerable. It seems to me that that's a helpful rule to follow when we're trying to balance a whole bunch of different interests and obligations. So next week, week 3, we're looking forward to discussing how the ethics codes of different organizations may be similar and may be different. And as you think about this, I encourage you to think about the variety of stakeholders that different organizations have. Who are the stakeholders for a for-profit business? Who are the stakeholders for a nonprofit? Who are the stakeholders for a government entity? And as you consider how a code of ethics might be similar and different for those various organizations, consider how they have different stakeholders. I think that would be a helpful framework to consider this question. So again, thank you for all of your good work. If there is any way that I can be helpful to you, please reach out to me, and I look forward to your insights in the next week of discussion. Take care.